All right, our apologies to everybody out there. We've had some technical difficulties with the internet here tonight. Not sure what it is and what's causing the problem, but that's why you've seen, if you've seen a couple times, we've gone live a couple different times here tonight, and stream may have buffered a couple times. We're sorry for the technical difficulties, and hoping that we can make it through the rest of the show without any more issues. Again, Road to the Blue Map brought to you by Rojo Go Vacation Rentals. No matter where you want to visit in the greater Mountain Lakes region of Alabama, we have something for you. Look to Rojo Go Vacation Rentals. So back here bringing you coverage of Road to the Blue Map. We've already covered a lot if you're just now tuning in. So you can go back onto our page and find the other stream and be able to watch a lot of the first part of this. But we were talking about Anniston and Jacksonville. Should be a really fun one there. And then was talking about Aniana and Cherokee County when the stream shut down. Should be a fun matchup there between Anniston and Jacksonville. At Jacksonville on Friday night, and then Aniana traveling to Cherokee County. The last two state runner-ups facing off against each other there. Fultondale traveling to Etowah. What a crazy week it was for Etowah last week. We're not going to get into details about everything that went on, but I think that team, considering a lot of people have kind of been doubting them through the first 2 weeks, all that, they showed a lot of mental fortitude to perform the way that they performed last week and get a W. And maybe that's going to get this program going in the right direction. We saw Blake Bone win one in football. Baseball. What if he can turn around and win one in football? That would be, man, that would be something. That'd be crazy. But Fultondale, they had a 24-0 lead on Hopeville in week 1 and blew it. Got beat 28-24 to start their season. Then lost 12-6 to Carver Birmingham. So they're looking to kind of get things going and get back going in the right direction there. Etowah lost 28-21 to Springville, which was a surprise. Fort Payne put up 54, and they won that game 54-27, which Fort Payne looks like they have an offense that. Oh, yeah. And we'll talk about them here in a little bit. But good win last week for Coach Blake Bone in his interim debut there with a 41-13 win over Asheville. And, look, Asheville's a program that's kind of trying to get things back going and get back going in the right direction, but is a big win for Etowah. And they needed that. They needed some confidence. They needed something to show, hey, we can still win here at this classification here in 4A. And so a good win for them last week. Big matchup here, in my opinion, Lincoln at Alexandria. It's almost a must-win for Alexandria at this point in the season. Oh, yeah. Coach Ginn and the Valley Cubs have had a difficult start to the year, but you still can't count those guys out. Lincoln's making the trip to Death Valley. And if you know about playing at Death Valley in Alexandria, it is not an easy place to play. No. The atmosphere there, the crowd will make it difficult for anybody that comes there. So, again, you can't count Coach Ginn out because he's going to work his boys hard. They're going to play tough. They're going to play physical. Lincoln got the season started with a 31-7 win over Talladega and beat Asheville that we just talked about 40-26. And then they lost to Southside Gadsden last week 29-8. Alexandria, like we said, had a difficult start to the year, but they will get things turned around, and this might be the game to do it. They've also faced three pretty good teams. Yeah. I mean, they lost to Cherokee County 48-14, which is your 4A runner-up, and then 45-21 at Jacksonville, which could be contending for the 4A, in 4A this year, and 42-7 to a very good Moody team. So, I mean, nothing to hang your head about. They lost to three very good teams. So, this should be an interesting matchup. This could be a matchup where Todd Ginn can, get a win and kind of get their season turned around. No doubt about it. I'm looking forward to that one there. Central Clay traveling to Elmore County. This is going to be a good game here. Oh, I watched Central Clay and Benjamin Russell, and Central Clay came into a 6A program and just pushed them around, which is what Danny Horn does and what he gets out of his guys. And, I think we made a post about Coach Horn this past week, and I don't think him, Coach Benefield, they're at a different level than a lot of other coaches because of what they get out of their guys from where they're at. They're not in a place where they can get a bunch of transfer, and it's not a knock on other coaches. If kids wanting to transfer to you, then you got to take them and you got to work. But what I'm saying is they're just at places where you don't just get kids moving into Fife or get kids moving into Ashland or Lineville. And so I think what he does with his group, getting the best out of them, is just remarkable. But they're going to have their work cut out for them against Elmore County. I mean, Elmore County scored 56 week 1, 62 against Taugaville. And it's 35-7 against Sylacauga. I did the game on the HSA TV network last week. It could have been a little bit worse. They could have scored some more. There were some penalties, some holding calls in that game that were called against them that kind of hurt their offense a little bit, but they're very good offensively. Their quarterback's very good. He reminds me of their head coach, Kyle Caldwell. If you don't know who Kyle Caldwell is, go and look up some stuff about him. He was a stud at Dadeville that went on and I think he made for D2 at West Alabama. He was unbelievable. I mean, he was Johnny Manziel, but just a little bit smaller, and that's why, I mean, he really was. And their quarterback reminds me a lot of him, and then they've got two guys that play both wide receiver and running back and just kind of swap out, and they do different stuff with them that very dynamic. And they've got a huge running back that, as the game wore on last week, you could tell it just got harder and harder for Sylacauga to tackle him. So I'm really looking forward to that game. Central Clay won this game last year. You got Coach Horn sitting at 343 wins. Crazy. He could get to 350 this season, which is just remarkable. And that's at less than 100 losses in his career as well. And you got Coach Benefield right there doing the same thing. So just remarkable what those two guys have done at their respective places. And I think you won't find two coaches that are more respected throughout the whole entire state than those two guys. I've never ran into a coach that has anything bad to say about either one of them. So Springville going to Southside Gadsden. Look for Southside Gadsden. You lost 14-10 to Guntersville to start the year. That was a big matchup. It's one that we could see again later on down the road. Good measuring stick for both programs. I think for Southside, the thing that you have to be really pleased with if you're Coach Miles Holcomb is how they've responded the next 2 weeks. And 37-12 over Hoax Bluff, 29-8 over Lincoln, who seems to be really heading in the right direction with that program there. This is a big opportunity here. Springville beat Etowah to start the year. They then lost to a really good Mortimer Jordan team. Then 23-7 to Leeds. They got beat last week. And Coach Jerry Hood, as long as he's at Leeds, they're going to be competitive. So, very interesting game here. And for Southside Gadsden, I think the biggest thing, you can't overlook Springville. Springville they hadn't been great the last couple of years, but it looks like they're getting a little bit better. They're competing. That's our Mortimer Jordan dominated Gardendale, and they were in the ball game with them. So you can't look at their 1-2 record and think anything of it. They're going to have to show up ready to play, and so I'm really looking forward to seeing how that game goes. All right, this game will be right up around our area up here, Reggie. Should be a very fun matchup. It was very close to making our games of the week as well. Sardis traveling to Arab. Tell us a little bit about this ball game.
Me and you talked about it before we went live. I'm very excited about this game. Sardis has come out swinging this season under first-year coach B.J. Brooks. I've known Coach Brooks for a while now. Again, he's one of those guys with a very, very good offensive mind. He was at Hoover last year, so he was able to work in that program and kind of see some of the things that they're doing. And he's brought a lot of energy to the Sardis program. They started the year out with a huge win over DAR, 60-6, and then they go and beat a very good New Hope team, 34-14. And this is a team that went 4-6 last year. So there's a lot of excitement at Sardis. There's a lot of good things going on, and I think what Coach Brooks is doing is going to take Sardis. Sardis could make the playoffs this year. And, Arab won this region last year. They went, I think, 11-2. So, what Coach Osmond does at Arab is unbelievable. So, they started the year off with a 34-6 win over Albertville, and then they beat Brewer 28-13 and had a close one last week with Douglas 21-14. And, this is year five for Coach Osmond, so this is going to be an interesting matchup. If Sardis can go in here and get this win at Arab, it's going to say a lot about what Coach Brooks is doing at Sardis.
No, I definitely agree with you. And, we're talking about an Arab team that went to overtime with Ramsey. So they easily could have been right there playing for the state championship last year as well. So we just talked about Douglas a little bit. They had a close game with Arab last week. Now they're going to be playing Guntersville. It's Coach Lance Reese and some of his players. And, for them, it was weird. They're supposed to play Crossville. Crossville's obviously not having a varsity team, so they were off. How do you handle that? It's early in the year. You're just starting to kind of get going. You're starting to get in that routine. You talked about how much he's about a routine. And so, for them, that kind of got them off the routine, having a bye week. But the players kind of said they felt like their team handled it well. Coach Reese felt like they handled it well. They focused on themselves. They got to, really fix a lot of the stuff that they've done over the first 2 weeks in some of these games. And you'd much rather be fixing stuff at 2-0 than you would at 0-2.
Exactly.
Big win, like we talked about, over Southside Gadsden to start the year. They went to Lawrence County and won 41-7. And Coach Reese kind of talked about it. We had a lot to improve off of on that game. 141-7.
I know.
I think Guntersville is really poised to have a big year this year. And for Douglas, you'd love to come in and play spoiler. Coach Brandon Lyles in his 4th year there. He's really kind of gotten his program now to where he wants it. And I think you're seeing that with the fact they beat Susan Moore 20-0, DAR 48-17, and then played Arab as close as they did this past week. for Douglas, you can go get a win here. I think it's going to really open up a lot of the eyes of people up here in Northeast Alabama to what that program's doing, what Coach Lyles has going on there. So
Right.
it should be a fun one there. All right, this matchup's not up here in our area, but it's a fun one. It's one that you will want to pay attention to if you're sitting around the house Friday, scrolling through NFHS, trying to find something to watch. Find this game. 3-0 Saraland at 2-1 Spanish Fort.
Wow.
If you want athletes, this game's going to happen.
You got it.
And Saraland beat Lipscomb, Tennessee, 31-30 on ESPN in overtime to start the year. And since then, they dominated 7A Murphy, 54-6. Dominated St. Paul. You don't see St. Paul's get beat 47.
No, you don't.
So what they've done defensively that's really stood out, you got Ryan Williams on the offensive side, you got KJ Lacey over there playing quarterback. So they've got players, but what they've done defensively has been very impressive. For Spanish Fort, they had a 14-3 lead on Fairhope week 1. They ended up losing that game 17-14. Fairhope a 7A team, so nothing to hang your head about because they've turned around and played really well. It beat Blunt 44-0, and then Baldwin County had a close one, 14-13.
Yeah.
Spanish Fort's going to have to get some offense going in this ball game. Otherwise, it's going to be very similar to Thompson and Vestavia last week, where Vestavia just never really gave a threat of being able to score against Thompson last week, and Spanish Fort will kind of be at the risk of having that same thing happen if they can't get something going offensively. So really will be an interesting game there. Pitson Valley at Clay Chalkville, look, a few years ago, this was like the matchup of the year in all of HSA. And,
Oh, yeah.
Pinson has kind of dropped down a little bit there, and look, that's an area there between Hewitt, Clay Chalkville, Pinson. People just move around. And they go to kind of who's having success at the time. Clay Chalkville's been successful the last couple of years. And it looks like maybe some guys are moving there. At one time, everybody was moving out to
Pinson Valley,
So, look, Pinson Valley beat Florence 18-3, a good win to start the year over 7A. And then lost 28-17 to McAdory, who's got a pretty good team, which shows you what Oxford's doing, and Coach Sam Adams there getting the win over them. So, they were off last week, able to prepare for Clay Chalkville. This was a close game last season. Pinson played them really well in a season where everybody was saying, Pinson's going to get killed by Clay Chalkville. I think it was like 14-12 or something like that last year.
Yeah,
so,
it was.
It was a close game, but you look at Clay Chalkville. I bragged on Saraland and their defense. Clay Chalkville and their defense deserve a lot of credit. 31-0, 17-3, and 46-7 over Pell City. It really kind of seems like Jalen Mbakwe has kind of found himself at quarterback and is starting to really play well. And that's going to be something that's going to be interesting to watch with that group as the year goes on. If they can keep playing defense this way, I mean, we talked about it last week. It's setting up for Saraland and Clay Chalkville. It's kind of up to everybody else to step up and knock one of them off to have a chance to play in that championship game. But if those two meet, that's going to be awesome.
It's gonna be a fun game to watch.
Athletes and college players all over the place. Opelika traveling to Phoenix City. Another one that's not really in our area, but it's a big 7A matchup. And if you don't know a lot about Phoenix City, you better start finding something out about it because they can score. And this looks to probably be the best group that Patrick Nix has had since he showed up at Phoenix City, which is saying a lot considering he played for a state championship 2 years ago and has been right there the other 2 years competing for one. But what they did coming up and dominating Hoover 48-24 week 1 really stood out. And then after that, they dominated their region. I mean, 51-0 over Smith Station, 48-7 over Enterprise, who was coming off a win at Auburn, and they had to go to Enterprise, which is not an easy place to play.
No, not at all.
So, Phoenix City looks to really be rolling right now, and then very similar to 6A, it's setting up for Phoenix City and Thompson. It's up to everybody else to kind of knock one of them off and give themselves an opportunity. And then speaking of Thompson, very interested in this ball game here. Going to Spain Park, and Spain Park competed very well with Hoover last week. I actually thought they were going to win that football game, and they didn't. But now you get to play at home against Thompson, who's coming off of a very big matchup with Vestavia. And they won that game 21-3 last week. They played very well defensively. Now can they bounce back and do it again this week?
Right.
I'm really interested to see how that game goes, and it should be a lot of fun there with those two teams matching up. So that kind of does it for all of our regular matchups. And now we're going to get into our Watkins Heating and Cooling LLC Games of the Week. I want to thank Brad Watkins and his group at Watkins Heating and Cooling. Look, it's happening right now. Air's changing. It's getting cooler. You're going to be in that time period where it's 31 in the morning and 79 at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and you're going to need your heating and cooling going. You're going to need the heat on in the morning while you're sleeping. You're going to need the cooling on when you get home in the afternoon from work. So make sure that it's up to date, and make sure to check out Brad Watkins at Watkins Heating and Cooling LLC. And we appreciate his sponsorship here with us on Road to the Blue Map. Make sure to check them out if you're around the Northeast Alabama area. Pisgah at Collinsville, our first game that we'll talk about here with our Watkins Heating and Cooling games of the week. Tell us a little bit about this matchup here. Should be a fun one between two undefeated teams so far.
Man, I love this matchup. Pisgah, made it to the semifinals last year, and Collinsville has been there in it for the last several years. They brought Coach Ernie Willingham out of retirement again, and so they both had a great start to the year. What's interesting is this series, Pisgah leads this series 4-3 all time. So we're either going to even this up or Pisgah's going to increase their lead in this series. And one thing I noticed, both teams can score. Pisgah's the number 3 scoring offense in 2A, and Collinsville's the number 5 scoring offense in 2A. So, something's going to give here. Pisgah started the year off with a 42-27 win over Lexington, and then followed it up with a 50-7 win over Sandrock. Collinsville opened the season with a 47-0 win over Galesville and a 39-6 win over Section. So both of these teams can score, but they also play defense. So something's going to give Friday night in this game. I can't wait to see how this one's going to turn out. And this is another one of those games that's going to have some region implications because, you've got Fife in that region and these two teams. So, there's going to be a battle, for at least the top 3 positions in that region. So this one's going to kind of give us an idea how things are going to shake out.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue that this game right here, you're competing for a home playoff spot.
Oh, yeah.
This game, you lose this game, and you may not be hosting a playoff game. So
exactly.
Very, very big one here.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of big games, Sylvania at Ohatchee. This one's going to be fun.
Oh, man. Yeah, this is another one of those matchups. Ohatchee has come out swinging this year. They've started out 3-0, and this is a team that lost their first 7 games last year. Their first 7 games, and they won their last 3 regular season games and make the playoffs. So they had a lot of momentum, at the end of last season. So I think that momentum has carried over into this season, and they're out 3-0, and this is a series that Sylvania leads 2-0. And one thing I noticed about this one is both teams have a big game next week, the following week. Sylvania's got Geraldine and Ohatchee's got Piedmont. So for these coaches, they've got to kind of get their teams focused on the task at hand this week and not look ahead to their matchups the following week. And Chris Finley is in his first full year at Ohatchee, and he is doing a great job. They were in the shootout with Westbrook Christian last week, and that was a game that Ohatchee was winning pretty big early, and Westbrook came back and made a game of it. But Ohatchee was able to, come in and get that 1-point win. So I'm very excited about this matchup. Sylvania, they've got all their guys back from last season. They made it to the semifinals where they played Piedmont. So this should be a very interesting matchup, and it's going to give us an idea on how that region is going to shake out because this is probably the deepest region in the state. I mean, they're good from top to bottom. So looking forward to this one Friday night.
These last 3 games we're about to talk about are 3 of the biggest in the state, if not the 3 biggest games in the state. We'll start off with Fort Payne traveling to Gadsden City. This one's going to be a fun one, and you'll be at this one on Friday.
I will. Somebody asked me if I was going to this game, and I jokingly told them no, and they probably still think I'm not going, but I'm not going to miss this game. Gadsden City leads this series all time with Fort Payne 5-0. I'm sure Fort Payne would love to come in and get their first win over Gadsden City. Fort Payne is another team that's come out scoring a lot of points. They last week they beat May Jemison 61-13, and the week before that they played. I didn't write that down, but I know they opened the season with Scottsboro. They lost that game 54-51. That was a back and forth high scoring matchup, and Fort Payne's led by their quarterback Dax Varnador. I hope I said that right. He's already thrown for over 1,000 yards and 12 touchdowns in 3 games this season. So this is going to be an interesting matchup with Gadsden City, and that defense that Gadsden City has, led by Dre Kirkpatrick. And, will Dre and Ty Sims and those guys in the Gadsden City backfield, can they go in and slow down that Fort Payne, passing attack? That's going to be the big question. And can Gadsden City continue running the ball like they have this season? Because that's been a strong suit for those guys. In the 3 games they played, they can run the ball. And, you know, you've got several guys that can run the ball. I mean, the quarterbacks can tuck it and run. You've got T.J. Worthy that's running the ball, Justin Peoples, Krell, Yao. They've got several guys. So this is going to be a fun matchup, and this could be the de facto region championship. So whoever wins this game is going to have a, you know, chance to finish out strong and win this region.
Fort Payne's going to want to throw it all over the place. It's going to stop the clock. Gadsden City wants to run the clock and run the football, and if they can run the football, they can really shorten this game, which plays into their hands, you know, against Fort Payne.
Well, the thing is, with Gadsden City running the ball, they score quick. They're very explosive. So this could be a very high-scoring game, because against Hewitt-Trussville, Gadsden City, when they got the ball the first time they had the ball, 3 plays they were in the end zone. So, and that's kind of been the issue for the defense, because they're not getting a lot of rest. But Coach Ali Smith's got those guys fired up. They're better conditioned than they have in the year. So this could be a fun game. Like I said, this could be a high-scoring game, or it could be a defensive game. Who knows how this one's going to turn out.
This next one's a big game at 7A. Hoover coming off their first win of the year against Spain Park, and they're going to be taking on Vestavia, who had their first loss of the year against Thompson. And for Vestavia, only 3 points against Thompson last week. They'd like to bounce back and put some offense together this week against Hoover. And, you know, myself, Bo, Rick Boy, a couple of us went to the game last year. It was on a Thursday night at the Hoover Met. It was a ton of fun down there, and it came down to Vestavia throwing a Hail Mary at the end of the ball game with a chance to win the game. They would love nothing more than to beat Hoover at home.
Oh, yeah. And, you know, for Hoover, this game is very important because, you know, they had that huge win against their rivals, Spain Park, last week, and that kind of got them back on track. Can they stay focused and going into this game with Vestavia? You know, Hoover's going to be Hoover. They're going to win ball games. They're going to go out and compete. They're going to play hard. They're going to be tough. You know, and one interesting thing about Hoover, you know, they have 2017, and that's a long time. You know, talking about Hoover, that's a long time. And one thing that kind of concerns me is, will Hoover be looking ahead to their matchup with Trussville the following week? And then on the flip side, you got Vestavia that lost a very tough game against a very good Thompson team that they were in for most of the game. They were only
3 in the fourth quarter.
In the fourth quarter they were down 7-3, and they had chances. But you know, I watched the interview or heard the interview by Vestavia's coach. He said the difference in that was they've got to work harder in the weight room. You know, he felt like that Thompson beat them up front and kind of pushed them around late in the game, and that's how Thompson was able to pull away late in the game and kind of put them away. And that's something that they will be working on going forward. So these are 2 big over-the-mountain rivals, you know, in the Birmingham area. They both get after it when they play each other. So this is going to be a fun game. And, you know, I wish I had a helicopter so I could kind of, you know, catch the first part of the Gadsden City game and then go down and watch this one.
Man, this was our 7A girls basketball state championship matchup 2 years ago.
Oh, man. You know? Well, yeah, it was. It was.
These are 2 teams that don't like each other a lot.
No,
I can tell you that.
Not
Speaking
at
of
all.
people that don't like each other a lot, they have respect for each other, I think. But it's a rivalry that's formed because of how good both these teams have been. This is our Watkins Heating and Cooling Game of the Week. Again, make sure to check out Brad Watkins and Watkins Heating and Cooling. If you're in Northeast Alabama, you want to make sure that your HVAC unit is ready to go, because here we go. It's about to get cold and it's about to cool off. You're going to want your heating right, and you're going to want your cooling right for those days that it still gets back up in those high 70s, low 80s. But plethora rematch, crazy. You got a rematch of last year's 4A semifinals and a rematch of last year's 5A semifinals right here. Well, Pleasant Grove at Ramsey, but that is our game of the week. And I think it is the game of the week here in the state of Alabama. You're talking about athletes. You're talking about just 2 teams that have matched up with each other a ton over the last couple of years. It's going to be a lot of fun in Birmingham on Friday night.
Oh, yeah, it definitely will. You know, Pleasant Grove and Coach Darrell LeBeau, they've got a strong start to the season. They went on the road and beat a 7A Smith Station 54-14, and then they beat a very improved Winona team 35-21 last week. So, you know, Coach LeBeau's always going to have his guys coached up. You know, like you said, this is a rematch from last year's semifinal, and these 2 teams are also region rivals. And Ramsey won both of these games last year. So Pleasant Grove's going to come in hungry. They're going to have revenge on their mind. I'm sure a lot of coaches don't like using the revenge factor, but with these 2 teams being right there by each other and being such big rivals and having so much success, I'm sure Coach LeBeau is going to kind of use that revenge term this week. One thing about Pleasant Grove, they played for the 5A title for 3 years straight from 2019 to 2021, and they lost all 3 of those games. So again, this Pleasant Grove team, I'm pretty sure they're hungry. They want to get to the state title game. They saw Ramsey win and won the state title, so they were like, hey, we can play with these guys. We can go do the same thing. And so Coach LeBeau's going to have his guys ready, and Ramsey and Coach Jackson, they started the year off 2-1. They beat a very good Hueytown team in the first game of the season, 28-14. And then they lost to Parker, which, like we talked earlier, they're probably one of the best teams in 6A North. They could
They could be the one to knock off Clay
Chalmers again, in the playoffs. They lost that game by 3 points, and then they went on the road and beat Jasper 65-6. So, you got the defending 5A champs, and then you got a team that played for 3 straight 5A championships, in a row, going head to head. And then, they played twice last year, and then here we are early in the season again. So this one is we need a helicopter, man. This is another game I would love to see, but Friday night I definitely will be keeping up with this game and several others.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. So again, thank you to Brad Watkins and Watkins Heating and Cooling LLC for sponsoring our games of the week, and thank you to Roho Go Vacation Rentals for sponsoring the show. You can check them out. Just Google Roho Go, ROHOGO, just like it sounds.
Yeah.
You can Google them, find them. Me and Bo have visited the houses. We're at Wentzels right now in Guntersville. They're literally right up the road from Wentzels, so it kind of tells you if you know this area in Guntersville, right off the lake, everything. I mean, anything that you can want. If you're looking at vacation up here in Northeast Alabama, not just in Guntersville, they're around Gadsden, they're all over Northeast Alabama. Check out Roho Go Vacation Rentals. They'll have the house for you, and we appreciate them sponsoring this show here with Average Joe Sports Talk. So that'll wrap it up for us. We'll be back again next week with week 4. It's the 5th week of the year, but week 4 is what it's called on the HSA schedule, because they have the week 0.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's already almost halfway through the year.
I know, it's crazy.
When we go into next week, it's going to be awesome. So,
yeah.
Fun show here, and we'll be back Saturday. It'll be myself, Bo, and Corey LaBounty for our Saturday morning recap show. You can find that live on our Facebook and YouTube page. If you haven't, subscribe to our Average Joe's YouTube page. Go check it out. Go subscribe, please. And, a lot of the same videos you see on Facebook are up there on YouTube. You can find those on there if you prefer to watch those on your Roku TV or whatever it is that you have. So,
yeah.
But you can find us Saturday morning at 9:30. Myself, Corey LaBounty, Bo Starkey, breaking down all the big matchups from Friday night and going over all the scores around the state. So, for Reggie Davis, I'm Caleb Brooks, and we will see you again next week with another Road to the Blue Map right here with Average Joe Sports Talk.